It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Conversations with Joan. Conversations with Joan will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life's Conversations with Joan. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Conversations with Joan focuses on topics that are important to your life, from health and wellness to professional development to personal well-being. Change makers join me to share their insights, tips, and strategies so you can thrive and live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. Now, let's start talking. Many people believe that there's more to life than what they're experiencing, but they don't know how to attain what they want because they're caught up in a loop of limiting beliefs or stuck as a result of past wounds. Today's guest, Sylvester McNutt, believes that we can achieve whatever we want by letting go of what no longer serves us. He joins us today to discuss ways to heal wounds, break free from limiting beliefs, and unlock our potential. Sylvester is a self-mastery coach and author. His new book is Live the Life You Deserve: How to Let Go of What No Longer Serves You and Embody Your Highest Self. Welcome, Sylvester. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation to be in this space. I appreciate it.
So, Sylvester, your work is around helping people achieve what they want. Why do you think so many people want more but never take the action to achieve it?
I think it just comes down to we love to dream as human beings. We love fantasy. We love to dream. We love to pretend. We love to wander. And that's a necessary step. Just like that little kid that plays with the monsters or, when the fire is on the floor. Like, that imagination is everything. And what we have to do is have that imagination, that childlike imagination, and couple it with that execution. And so it's easy to dream and come up with ideas of like, okay, I'll do this or I'll do that. But the hardest part of it is the execution. It's the daily grind of things, the consistency to show up, the ability to pull yourself up when you get knocked down. And that's the hard part. That's where resiliency is, and that's where adversity is. And so the hardest part is the execution.
Yeah.
And I think if we can just get people more committed to executing the habits and the daily steps, then we'll all get closer to what we're looking for.
Do you think a lot of it is that we're afraid of what might go wrong? We can think of everything that can happen that we don't want to occur, but we never see the possibility of it might go right.
Right. Like, I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and he said, I'm afraid of failure and I'm afraid of success. And we kind of joked, and I kind of was teasing him. I was like, well, you can't be afraid of both. Like, you got to pick one, But then when I asked him, I said, why are you afraid of the success? He literally just was talking about what you just said. Like, sometimes we're just afraid of that next level. And that's part of the next level is integrating the fear. Mm-hmm. Like, in the book, I talk about healing means wholeness, right? And it's like, wholeness means to integrate all pieces, like not just some of the pieces. All pieces have to be integrated. They have to be brought into the fray, if you will. Here, having that fear of failure or that fear of success or fear of whatever the next level may be is necessary. Can you invite that edge and sit with it and work with it, and not necessarily try to get rid of it, but integrate it and make yourself whole?
And that's an interesting point, Sylvester, the fear of success, because we have this internal happiness thermostat where we're comfortable. And if we've been miserable for so long, we're comfortable in that misery. And when you start to elevate yourself out of that, you do become uncomfortable and you do become even more afraid of that joy that you're experiencing. It's a feeling that you're not used to. So what we do then is we self-sabotage to bring ourselves back to that comfort level of misery.
Yeah, and the self-sabotage can become a pattern. And so that pattern can slow us down or completely destruct life. And so the self-aware person hears the word self-sabotage and they're like, they introspect. And then there's that moment to meet that edge. Like, am I self-sabotaging? And the cool thing about that is, if you ask yourself that, or if you have the self-awareness to identify that, you might feel shame, or regret. You might feel some of those those darker emotions that we don't really talk about at the coffee table with our friends and family. But if you do, I feel ashamed because I am self-sabotaging. It's like, well, that's beautiful because now you have an opportunity for what? For integration. And
Mm-hmm.
where we make ourselves whole, we heal. So even if you do feel that shame, it's like, all right, well, I do feel shame. Let me step through that. Let me bring it on board. Let me acknowledge it. And then that helps you with the self-sabotaging.
Sylvester, you're a football player. What did you learn from sports about the importance of what we think?
Oh man, with sports, it's so cut and dry the results you're looking for. It's a win or lose thing. Did you win? Did you lose? And that's how it's all judged. But life itself is so much more beautiful than that. So much more nuanced. So much more colorful. And so one of the things that I learned from sports that I apply to life, even now, as a father, as a guy who hasn't been in football for a long time, is the fact that no matter where you are on let's just call it the scoreboard, it's like things are possible. Change is possible. Just because a team is losing in the game, that doesn't mean that they're going to lose the game. And even if you're up and you have all the momentum, like I remember 2019, right before COVID happened, I felt like everything was up and just trending in the upward direction for me. And then 2020 happened, and there was a lot of downs, right? And so what sports teaches you is like, if you're winning or losing, like don't give up, right? Stay committed to the fight. Stay committed to your values. Stay committed to the work that is going to get you the life that you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Sports teaches you that resiliency. Another thing that I believe is so important, and I will say I even miss this now, is the community aspect. It teaches you to be in community. When you do a sport, team-based sport, you learn values like sacrificing for the team. You learn values like picking up your brother or your sister. You learn values like, fighting for the people that you care about. You learn how to speak to different people as well, because at least for the sports that I played, it was multicultural, it was multi-generational. So you learn how to speak to your elders and show respect to the people who have paved the way for you. And then when it's your turn to be the elder, to be the leader, you know how to bring the younger people along. You know how to not alienate them because they're quote unquote different. I'm sure when we were all younger, we probably had an adult in our life that was that way. At least I know I did. I had an adult that talked about how the young generation wasn't this, or they weren't that, and that happens all the time. And it's like, well, when you're an elder, you get to choose what type of elder you want to be. Do you want to talk about what the young generation is not, or do you want to, validate what they are and then show them what they're missing, or give them opportunities to learn? And that's the beautiful thing about sports. It shows you how to deal with people of all ages, of all different levels of classifications. Right? I remember one time, my coach talked to us about treating the CEO and the janitor the same way. Right? And that's where I learned that from, is one of the coaches. Treat everybody the same, with respect, with love, with honor. So sports is something that I love. I think everybody should play. Obviously, if there's an opportunity for it. And the lessons, they're life lessons. I think the last lesson I want to mention is, not to quit. Not to quit. I think about relationships, family systems, right? Think about the careers that we're looking to build. It's like, you can't quit. You got to show up. You have to figure out how to show up for people, how to be present for people. So sports, huge part of my life. I love that question.
Mm-hmm. So earlier, you mentioned being mindful. And I think a problem is, and I was guilty of this for most of my life, I just lived my life in autopilot. I didn't pay attention to what I was thinking or how I was feeling. I was just in go-go mode, just keep moving forward, keep doing what needs to get done throughout each day. But without that self-evaluation or paying attention to how you think, it's very difficult to make the changes that you teach. So if someone is so caught up in being an autopilot, what advice do you offer to help that person become more mindful of their thoughts?
Yeah, and it's not to shame anybody who does feel like they're on autopilot, because what I've learned about the brain is that our brain is consistently looking for patterns and shortcuts, to eventually use less energy. because at this point as an adult, if you're doing something new every day, which is a beautiful life, you're also using quite a lot of brain power. So our brains are looking to, reduce the amount of energy output, make things streamlined, make things easy. So autopilot is going to happen. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't shame yourself whoever's hearing this. If you're like, oh man, I'm on autopilot, I'm being judged. Look, autopilot is not necessarily good or bad. Sometimes autopilot is necessary. So, right? Sometimes it could be momentum. It could be you're in the groove. It could be everything is going well, and so you have habits, you have patterns, you have routines, right? Like I think about a parent, who, at 7:30 every night they start their bedtime routine. At some point, the routine you can kind of get on autopilot because you're doing it 4,000 times, right? It's like, oh, that's not a bad thing. Right, but then there are aspects of life where sometimes we're on autopilot and it's causing us not to show up fully. It's causing us not to be present. And so the big recall for us to consider is that if we're not autopilot, we might not be present. And the way to really enjoy life is to be present in life, right? So like there's an invitation for presence. And then the next thing is a good question I like to ask my clients is, well, what do you want? Because if you say to yourself, I am not on autopilot, right? You can affirm that reality, or I am on autopilot. Okay, cool. That's your reality right now. You're on autopilot. So then what do you want? That's the next question. What does it look like to not be on autopilot? And then just from that question, that's like where the alchemy begins, where you get to really create and you get to play. And I teach all my clients to use the word play. I write about it in the book. Play, joy, fun. A lot of the times we approach this work of bettering ourselves or bettering our habits, and we make it work, we make it hard, we make it difficult. And I like to use the word play. Like it doesn't have to. It might be hard, but it doesn't. We don't have to approach it that way. But what if you get to play? Like play sounds fun. Play sounds cool. Play sounds easy. And so that's the work right there.
Sylvester, do you have an exercise or tip that you can give us that can help someone discern what they want? I mean, we tend to know what we don't want, but most people have no idea what they do want.
Yep, I have an exercise I do with my clients. So for 2 minutes, these are the rules. For 2 minutes, you're going to be witnessed. You're going to speak out loud. So someone has to witness you. I do it with my clients, but it could be a husband, it could be a son, it could be anybody. It could be fellow coworker. And they're going to set a timer for 2 minutes, and all they're going to do is listen to you answer this question. What do you want? And what you have to do is respond for 2 minutes. And most people can't do it on the first time. I don't think I've ever had anybody do it all the way through. Because what tends to happen is once you start telling that story, then the patterns that you have and the mindset that you have now gets looped in there. And so people will often start, but they'll get cut off to what they don't want, or they'll start telling a story of why it can't happen, or what did happen, or some failure, some resistance. It comes up every time. And for the first 2 minutes, you don't want to be stopped. Just let it flow. All right, let it flow. I let people flow. And the reason why I let them flow for that 2 minutes is because this is often likely the first time that the person has been able to just think freely. Because that's really all it is. You're just thinking freely. You're just flowing. You're flowing from an intuitive part of your experience, from your brain. And then I go and I say, hey, so I let you get that for 2 minutes. And you went for about 90 seconds telling me what you want. And I often will repeat back, because I usually will take notes. So I'll repeat back, what they said that they actually wanted. And then there will be a demarcation point through their share where they switched it up. And I'll tell them that. I was like, oh, right around the time you said you want this, you started going to some story or some negative. And everyone laughs. Like, oh, man, I did. Because then they start thinking about the thoughts. So then we'll prompt again and say, hey, let's do it again. You just did 2 really good minutes for 1 minute, right? And then we minimize the ask. I say, for 1 minute, I want you to just tell me what you want. You can repeat anything that you said already, but focus on only saying, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. And then they do it the second time. And it's sharper. It's more confident. It's cleaner. It sounds like more in alignment. And then we go through one more time, and I just say, all right, cool. You named it. You named everything you want. Now just repeat it. Just repeat it with more confidence. Let me like hear it. Let me feel you. And then they'll do it again. They'll do it for the third time. And then from there, their brain is changed. It's like it's rewired. So then what I try to do is get them to repeat what they were repeating on that, the second, third time. Try to get them to repeat that, either through journaling, either through telling other people. What I like to call that is just being witnessed, right? I'm just witnessing you go through, because look, if you've been on autopilot, you might not have thought about it. So it might be difficult the first time to be accurate when I ask you, what do you want? You might not be able to be accurate. So we practice it a few times together. And then once we practice it a few times together, now I just need to remind you on your own to practice. So you could do that with your prayers, for those who have a relationship with God, where you can pray with God. You can journal, all right? Part of your morning or night routine. You can write affirmations. Any one of those pathways, as long as you're being reminded of it, then you start to rewire and reprogram the brain. And that's what we do.
Sylvester, once someone figures out what they want, the next thing they're going to say is, yeah, I want this, but, and I'm afraid, what if I want to go for that new job and then I don't have any income and I can't support my family? And you get the list of all the objections. So what do you say then? What's the next step?
Absolutely. So healing means wholeness. So anytime that we have incomplete sentences, we need to complete the sentence. So if we have an incomplete thought, we need to complete the thought, right? And so, what if it doesn't work out? Okay, well, what if it does? Mm-hmm. Well, what if I fail? Okay, well, what if you succeed? Well, what if I'm not good enough? Okay, well, you might not be good enough. But what if you start and you become good enough through the process, right? Complete the statement. Well, I'm not good enough today. Well, maybe you can be good enough tomorrow. Like, complete the statements. And just through completing the statements, you give yourself a bigger perspective, right? Sometimes we say stuff like, oh, well, I always fail my math test. Okay, question, always. Do you always fail the math test? Well, no, you don't always fail the math test. You sometimes have failed the math test. Maybe a few times you have failed the math test. Okay, so have you ever succeeded the math test? Yes. So sometimes I passed the math test. Because what we do is we build this story, and the stories are based on language. They're based on images. They're based on language. Okay, so we just need to give ourselves access to more story. Mm-hmm. And that's just a practice. That's just a repetition.
And it's learning to talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend or someone you love. You would never say to someone else, no, you can't do that. You encourage them. So we have to learn how to encourage ourselves.
Yes, I love that.
Is there anything else you would like to say about getting started on this journey?
Yeah, it might be difficult, but difficulty is not something we run from. We don't need to run from the difficult, because we can practice managing, sitting with, integrating the difficult. And the more that we do that, the more confidence you have, the more self-belief. So it may be difficult, but it's possible. And that possibility should give us hope. And the next thing is, like, you're not alone in this journey. You're not the only person. We like to internalize, and we think we're the only person going through it. It's not true. Everything that you're processing or that you're going through, somebody has been through it and somebody else is going through it. And that means, like, there's resource. There's other people you can connect with who have went through this, who have managed it. It may not be the exact same sandwich, but it's still a sandwich. Try not to internalize everything as, oh, I'm the only person, like, who's ever dealt with this in the history of life. It's not true, and let that give you some confidence that you can get through it, because there's people who have gotten through what you're going through currently at this moment in life.
The book is Live the Life You Deserve, How to Let Go of What No Longer Serves You and Embody Your Highest Self. If you'd like to learn more about Sylvester and his work, you can visit sylvestermcnutt.net. Sylvester, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided is the opinion of our guest and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, CYACYL.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital articles, and be sure to subscribe to our mailing list. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.